A very good evening to all of you here with us today. We welcome you to yet another webinar by Naman HR. It's a panel discussion on the hot topic of performance management system. I hope I'm absolutely clear to I'm audible and visible well. If there's any challenges faced by any of you, please go ahead and put it in chat section. It'll be on your right. We'll have question and answers in the last 15 minutes of this session. So feel free to keep posting your questions as and when they come to you, but we'll be taking them towards the end only. I hand over the stage to Vibha now.
Thank you so much, Shambhavi. Thank you so much. So a very warm welcome to everyone. My name is Bibha Mishra and I'm a principal consultant in Naman HR. We are a leading HR service provider based out of Gujarat. With more than 15 years of experience in the field, we bring to you an exclusive customized solutions to any people related matter. To know more about us, please visit our website. That's www.namanhr.com. You'll get all the information about us there. And thank you once again for taking out your valuable time for this valuable session. Like Shambhavi already mentioned, that we are going to talk about PMS, Performance Management System. Performance Management System is a much debated and deliberated topic. And the COVID-19 pandemic has further spearheaded the challenges and thrown PMS into chaos. All of us know that. And the reactions have been telling us. You know what Facebook did with its 45,000 employees. Most of the companies canceled their next review cycle altogether. Others are scrambling to explain last-minute changes to their performance measures and reward allocations. And also, we had been talking and hearing much about agility, resilience, modern age performance management system, new performance management system. And these are some of the boardroom buzzwords that we had been hearing. But do we know how agile or so-called modern PMS looks like? Do we actually know whether PMS has evolved or emerged or not over a period of time? Do we have a solution to some of the frustrating and nagging issues or questions or queries or concerns that our employees or businesses raise on PMS every day? To help you answer some of them, we will be having a panel discussion through today's webinar on shifting gears through PMS. So yes, viewers and audience, I'm delighted to share with all of you that for today's discussion, we have with us two HR stalwarts, Mr. Shrikant Lonikar and Mr. Sudhir Kulkarni. Mr.
Hi.
Shrikant, hello, sir. We welcome you, sir. Hello, Lonikar, sir. Yeah, I would not want to miss on this opportunity to introduce both of them to all of you. Mr. Shrikant Lonikar, he is the whole-time director and chief human resources officer at Pernod Ricard for Gulf, SAARC region, and India. He is a member of the top leadership council of the company. Mr. Lonikar has over 35 years of experience in leading HR in India, US, Europe, China, Gulf, and South Asia. And his passion lies in building organization culture, developing leaders, and employer branding. He has also been advising the CEOs on strategic business and people matters. He is also a certified executive coach, strategic HR planner, assessor for leadership development, and many more. He has been an international speaker and a visiting faculty at several management schools. We welcome you, sir, once again, and looking forward to have your insights on PMS. We have another guest speaker with us, Mr. Sudhir Kulkarni. He is also well known as SRK, a veteran HR leader with over 45 years of experience in the field. SRK has sound expertise in organization restructuring, competency mapping, assessment centers designing and implementation, team building, strategic HR, building performance culture, and many more. He's currently on board with Naman HR as advisor. And before joining Naman HR, SRK was heading HR for fast-growing power business of Larsen and Toubro. He's also a certified executive coach and has coached several professionals from various industries and has successfully consulted organizations across the spectrum, covering wide variety of people processes. We welcome you, sir, once again. And we are delighted to have both of you here with us. Yeah. So before I take up discussion with our panelists today, I would want to know from our viewers that what words come to their mind when they think of PMS. So viewers, I would request all of you to please respond to this question in the chat box. What comes to your mind when you think of PMS? We are looking forward to your responses. Please respond to this question. What comes to your mind when you think of PMS? Yes, so I have a response from Anand. He says productivity. We have it from Ramya. She says goal setting, review, self-review, feedback. Okay, Mr. Mankar, he's saying KPIs and KRAs. Great. Yeah. Some more. Yeah, Shraddha, she's saying rewards. Oh, great. Yes. Yes. Some more, if we can have. Development. Oh, Dr. Naresh Mehta is saying development. Great. I'm so glad to see all these words that describe or that comes to your mind when you think of PMS. Okay, Krunal, overall improvement of organization. Hiren is saying competencies. Anand is saying employee engagement by role clarity. Great. Very interesting. Vipasha is saying accolades. Oh, wow. Wow. Anoli is saying, I would like to put a perception about this, which is there in mind of employees. Okay. And Rajendra is saying, I wash. Very interesting. I would say good, bad, ugly, whatever, but I am finding them so interesting. Fair and measurable assessment. Okay, Pravi sir is saying fair and measurable assessment. Great. Great, great. Wow. Wow. 360-degree feedback. Interesting. Yes, sir. Yeah. So now I think, let me put this question to one of our panelists. Yes, Mr. Lonikar, moving to you, I have a same question for you. What words that come to your mind when you think of PMS and why?
The words that come to my mind, good evening to everybody. Sorry about that. And thank you for inviting me here. So jumping into the question, Biba, the words that quickly come to my mind when we talk of PMS are like increment, bonus, promotion, transfer, feedback, and manager, and bell curve, performance rating.
Yes,
These are the key words, because, and I'm saying it as an employee, not as a HR professional, because conventionally the PMS has delivered these as results to the employees. And most of the time, when these results are delivered, we as HR and the people managers, they use PMS as an excuse to justify those. So we do differentiation, so everybody doesn't get everything or as per their expectation. And when they ask this question, why I did not get what I was expecting, rather than explaining their performance and relation to reward, most of the time they get an answer, this is what the PMS says, so you get this kind of thing. So that unfortunately is a reality in many cases. Maybe because we don't train managers as HR, we don't take courage to take a stand on the system, whatever could be the reason. But that's where then people generally believe that when the company does a performance management process at the end of the year, they are actually going to dole out these results out of that, and whatever comes my way would be my good luck. That is general impression of employees.
So you're absolutely right, and very rightly mentioned that. So I can so very well resonate with what you mentioned. It's more like an excuse tool that is deployed or that is used by people in the organization just to promote their, I would not say their agenda, but yes, to use it as an excuse to release the decisions with respect to many other processes which is linked to PMS. So instead of making it more effective, we try to use it somewhere. Yeah. So there's a tool that talks about this, and that is why you got what's there in the system. So very interesting perspective, Mr. Lonikar, you shared, and you talked about contemporary, being contemporary, or how, when I say, well, I have heard about modern age system or being contemporary, having a contemporary system. So before getting into that, I think it would be really important to know. It will be important to know how system has evolved over a period of time. How is it has emerged over time. So my question is for you, SRK, how PMS that we see today has emerged. If we can understand that, and if we can look at the journey of PMS, it will give us more clarity. Yes, SRK. So can you throw some light on how PMS that we see today has emerged?
True. Good evening, and nice to be invited to this forum. And I think we are having a very intelligent audience because the kind of responses that we received was great. PMS has been one of the very important and one of the oldest HR interventions or HR tools, and has seen a very long history. People say that, in fact, one of the earliest recorded work on PMS or performance appraisal, as it was called then, is credited to Robert Owen when he wanted to rate various textile bills he had in terms of their performance. But that was way back in 1800, and surely what we see today is very different from that. The PMS, as we see today, you can say roughly it took some shape around the World War I. After the World War I, the American and other armies who had many people decided to use merit rating system to get rid of people. But more importantly, the industry where we all work, they were concerned about improvement of productivity and all, and that's how some initial work in terms of merit rating people or appraising people started. But that was in a very nascent stage. Thereafter, I think around the 40s and the early 50s, formal merit rating or formal appraisal started, which was largely trait-based appraisal. Traits, people would be appraised on traits like loyalty, sincerity, or initiative, enthusiasm, and things like that, more personality-based. It helped in one way, but it didn't help in many ways because it evaluated or assessed people on the personality traits and not on performance. So the performance appraisal focus in terms of appraising people against what they do, in a way, started around the 60s and the 70s. Some of it was based on Peter Drucker's theory on management by objectives in 1954, but it took shape in terms of performance appraisal around the 60s when organizations started setting objectives, evaluating people, their teams, or rather departments, and based on that, the extent to which the objectives were met. Then it was more in the 1980s. The performance appraisal underwent a lot of changes, and many things got into the appraisal system or PMS system in terms of cascading of thrust area, cascading of objectives from the unit level to the department, things like that. Performance review, performance feedback, then in terms of reward linkages and others started. And around the 2000, the beginning of this century, with the change in the workforce profile, a lot of focus had to be shifted to engagement. And that's when, apart from the development focus which had already started, a lot of effort went into performance dialogue, constructive dialogue, because you needed to hold back people. There was a lot of younger workforce what would trigger them was different. The competitive pressures around that time also led to certain other things, courtesy, Jack Welch's vitality curve. Many organizations moved into what was called, already Mr. Lonikar has talked about, bell curve. And because you needed to possibly, as Jack Welch says, that I'll reward the best performers, accommodate the middle, and then get rid of the bottom. So you needed a system which was considered credible, which could do that, with a measure of objectivity, and that's what happened. Back in India, of course, we have followed similar trends, but more significantly, I would say that, see, in the PSU started with the what was called as annual confidential reports, which was boss-driven, confidential, and at times also trade-driven. And then the shift started. Pioneering work done by organizations like Larsen and Toubro, with which I was associated, and thereafter State Bank of India, went in for open development-based appraisal. Well, globally, as you are talking at the beginning, there has been a big shift now since the 2010-12. Many organizations have discarded the bell curve. They don't believe in the annual target setting. There is, you talked about Agile. Abode and Agile have gone in for Agile Manifesto. And a lot of things have happened. I think in course of further discussion, we'll talk more about that. But yes, there has been alternate shifting of PMS focus from being an instrument of development and an instrument of reward, and maybe changing focus, as I said. So here we are.
Oh,
That's
great. Thank you so much, SRK, for taking us through this growth journey. I would say this is a growth journey of performance management system and how it has evolved from trait-driven to performance-driven or performance management, rightly named performance management. So it's no more trait-driven, because kind of sort of subjectivity would have been involved in that, and we cannot call that as performance management system. But now the way it is taking a shape, and it is more important to understand what's the dying need of an hour, and accordingly we need to ensure that the system is tweaked or modified or is able to customize the requirement of the businesses and as well as of market. So thank you so much for taking us through this journey of evolution of performance management system. And it will be very important to understand, as it has evolved, the treatment of performance management system by organization. So my next question is for Mr. Lonikar. So what has gone well with PMS and what has not gone well with PMS? If we look at the the journey, we have already gone through the journey, but according to you, based on your experience, if you can throw some light on what went well and what did not go well with the system.
See, within all the people or talent systems that we have in a business organization, which predominantly are owned by HR, my sense is that, and I could be wrong and stand to correction, but my sense is that PMS is one system for which HR gets the maximum beating from employees and from the management also. And if that is true to some extent, I would say this is one of the most failed system historically. So the big responsibility of why PMS does not go well is on the shoulders of HR, because we believe that it is HR system. Actually, it is not HR system, but we believe and we label it that this is a HR system. So when you go and ask people, अभी क्या चल रहा है, तो तुम्हारा PMS कर रहे हैं. This is a classical answer managers give to HR, and we feel that wow, they are working for me, which is a a pseudo satisfaction we get out of it, which is actually not something that we should be looking forward to.
True. Very true.
So when we say that it is our system, then first responsibility that any process that you say is my process, you have to honor it to the most. You should never compromise with the integrity and authenticity of the process, number one. Number two, you should not allow anybody else to play with your process. So you are the author, you are the owner, and you are also the protector of that process. So the moment you see somebody is deviating from the process, you have to bring them on the track and not leave so much of scope to actually go into that kind of a deviation zone of any process. Number one. So this is first part of it. HR has not done that very effectively. Most of the time we go as per the leadership team, the CEO, and those kind of thing. And those on the this particular discussion here, those of HR professionals will agree with me that if you have a strong CEO or leadership team that has a commitment to the PMS, in those companies the PMS is effective. But a strong HR person and not so strong support of these rest of the stakeholders, many a time it becomes weak because HR allows it to be weak. So my conviction is very strong, but I am not executing it at that level. Okay, so that is first part. Now, why would somebody take it seriously? And this is where we have to make people understand what is PMS. And as this was a beautiful way you started this, Biba. What words come to your mind? And this is what is the imagery of PMS in the minds of people. That it is something that gives you something. Any process must have an output. So PMS being a process, it has an output. But what is that output that we have to define? Okay, and what is this process? Why this process? This has to be explained to the people. So this becomes a year-on-year ritual. And if we say that performance management is not an annual thing, it is a lifelong thing. As long as there is a performance, as long as there is a performance management, as simple as that. What happens annually is a cycle is broken into 12 months for ease of measurement. You cannot tell somebody after 5 years that we are very happy with what you have done in 5 years. So it has to be broken. Then it has to align with the business's budget process, which is classically a 12-month cycle. That's why PMS coincides most of the time with the business planning process also in the organization. And what it does, and this is a core issue that we have to understand as HR. PMS is a business process. It is not a HR process. Performance is business. As simple as that. There is no other equation that makes sense as far as people as an ingredient in the business goes into making that. So you have technology, you have brands, you have capital, you have resources, everything is there. Put all that together, and if you do not have a human factor involved, there will be no performance management. Because it is very easy to measure what each factor is contributing to that. But when people come in, then comes the performance management. And for that purpose, people, performance, and business result, it is a straight equation. That is why if you manage performance, you are managing business. If you manage people's results, you are managing business results. It is very easy to put a connection like that. But then we again, put our flag saying it is the HR system. And the moment you say this is HR system, then people will come and say, "Abhi aapka HR ka kaam kar rahe hain." And that is a big challenge in the whole thing. So what can actually help in making this PMS successful? As we say, it is a process. So there are steps in that process. And we all understand that. Those are basic steps but there are 3 parts of this process. Those are most critical to make a PMS successful in my experience. Mm-hmm. First is the goal setting. And this is the least attended kind of a process. Again, here HR goes and says that we want 100% people to complete their goals. Okay, and then we track the numbers. What is going in the goal is not audited by anybody. And if any company thinks it should be audited, they give it to HR. HR cannot audit goals. HR can look at the integrity of the goals as per the defined process, that there is a SMART criteria. Is it there or not? But what is written there is not HR's expertise to do that. So it has to be done by the people managers for their teams. And this SMART criteria, if people take it seriously at the beginning of the year, end of the year, they will never be surprised. Even if the rating is at the bottom of the curve, they will not be surprised because they know that they have not done that. The biggest dispute that happens at the end of the year when ratings and other rewards are given to people and they disagree is because the goals were not set properly. So that is where we have to educate and tell people. The second most important aspect of this whole process is feedback. And the feedback, this is where managers fail. They do not give feedback to people appropriately and periodically. So the whole year, the manager's language is one, and end of the year discussion, the language is second. And this is where people get completely disillusioned that what should I believe? But then they have to believe in what actually happened to them rather than what they heard during the year. And if people start giving periodic feedback, like when performance happens, give feedback. That is the best strategy. That today somebody has done well, go put your arm around the shoulder and say that you have done well. And somebody has failed or committed a mistake, identify and tell that person that you have done this which you were not supposed to do. And people will not dispute that. But what happened in the month of January, you go and tell the person in December, I'm sure they will say, I was not present in the office on that day when you are talking about this event. And they go up to that point in rejecting the facts of the matter. So this feedback, and most important thing is recording that feedback. So most companies have a digitized system today. It's very easy for you to go and record it there, and that should be visible to the employee that manager has written 2 comments about last week's performance here. People take these things seriously. And the third and most critical aspect of this is the appraisal discussion that happens at the end of the year. This is where you will see most employees have a sleepless night before they have the discussion, and most managers have a cold feet. And there are programs, I don't know Naman's program covers that, but there are many, consulting companies, they run program on how to manage difficult employees appraisal discussions. And this is something very interesting, because now what you're talking about is what you have done and how you have done. And for that, giving that feedback, I need somebody to train me. I can get work done by you, but I cannot tell you how you perform. That is something very interesting, but this is the human aspect of the whole process, But if these 3 things, and that is my experience, I can tell you. But knowing everything, there is nothing called overdoing. In Pernod Ricard, when we do this PMS, every year I do a webcast like this to all my employees. Okay. And I explain to them the process. It looks stupid to me that talking about the same thing again and again, but you will not believe that many webinars that we do internally, many leadership communications we do internally, the participation in the PMS webinar I do is beyond 90% every year. And I know that people don't love to see me or listen me. They want to talk about the PMS. So anybody else in my place is talking, there will be 90% people. That's the point, because they are interested in that subject, not in the speaker. So this is something that I think, to be precise on this, we have to honor the process ourselves, make sure people honor that. And the key steps of the process, that integrity has to be maintained. Moment you contaminate one step or eliminate or allow it to be played with by the people there, you are going to have a result that will make noise in the system.
Oh, great, sir. I think very insightful, and the experience that you shared and best practice, I would say you are practicing one of the best processes in your organization. I think one takeaway from whatever you just now shared is HR can be custodian, or HR can be, a function who can ensure that there is a compliance to the process. But ownership has to lie with everyone in the organization. We cannot call it HR tool or HR system. It is actually an organizational tool. Exactly.
If you look at it like a talent acquisition.
Exactly.
Talent acquisition is HR's process.
Yeah. True.
HR doesn't hire for its own department. We hire people and give it to the business. So we never do appraisal discussions. HR cannot do appraisal discussions.
Very true. I fully agree.
This is a point of debate, and many companies and SRK would also have experienced it number of times or heard it, that people insist that HR should sit in the appraisal discussion. And I have tremendous fights with managers, and I say that we will not sit in your appraisal discussion. That's not our job. We cannot be witnesses. We cannot be advocates to the manager. That actually vitiates the role of HR, and we have to take a tough stand there. So process is owned by us, what you are saying, but it is meant for you and executed by you, not by HR. That is the difference.
You're absolutely right, sir. And HR has to ensure that these systems are taken seriously, and these systems are meant for businesses. And it's not, to do with anything for HR. It's not for HR department per se, I would say, but it's for business. So organization or employees need to understand this. And you very rightly said, sir, that CEOs of organizations who take the system seriously, there the system has actually reaped benefits which organization looks for from the system. So
True.
you're absolutely right, sir. And thank you so much for sharing the 3 steps which are very important. One is goal setting. Second one is feedback. And you rightly mentioned that feedback that I should have given today, I'm giving it 3 months, after 3 months or in next quarter, will have no value. And so real-time feedback or continuous feedback is very important. Plus recording that feedback so that I can go back and just check as to whether I've improved on it or not. And a third one, that is appraisal discussion. So I would like to share that Naman does conduct appraisers development programs for exclusive for client organizations, and we can hold it on a for public also as an open program, wherein we do train appraisers or managers to conduct appraisal discussions effectively, how to give feedback, how to share feedback. And also we do it for employees in the organization or appraisees, how they should be taking up the feedback. So that's very critical. These are some of the critical steps, and that is how I need to understand, or I need to ask myself, am I ready to go ahead with the steps? Am I ready to take up these steps? And then I can see the benefits of the system. So thank you, sir, for sharing the experience of the system, how it is treated right now, and what we need to do. I'm very sure viewers will, whatever insights Mr. Lonikar shared will definitely help our viewers to change their approach, to revisit their approach in handling the tool. This is a business tool and not HR tool. And with this, I would move to SRK, and I want him also to share his experience or to let us know why PMS has been a contentious subject, why this is so, controversial topic or system in the organization. So SRK, if you can throw some light on this, why it is so.
Surely. Yeah, I think Mr. Lonikar has very beautifully analyzed, and I don't have to add to that. I'd only share a couple of things, and starting with an anecdote. Once I asked one of my team members, is he happy with his PMS, or how was his experience with this year's PMS? The reply was very cryptic. He said, sir, I'll tell you after I know what my other colleagues have got in terms of rewards. So my satisfaction or dissatisfaction, unfortunately, is based on not what I have received and how fair it is, but comparatively where I stand vis-a-vis what my other colleagues in my perception are doing, doing better or worse, or generally at times it is not as good, generally. Anyway, coming back to very specific things, as Mr. Lonikar has very, very rightly said, the problem starts with inadequate attention in objective setting, okay, or target setting. And to my mind, based on my experience, I would say that both, I think, line managers and HR are to blame. They have their share of blame in this. Somehow, and maybe more so in our context, Indian context, most managers feel that their responsibility is producing day-to-day, week-to-week outputs or results, not so much in terms of any investment in terms of doing target setting and all that, because these are all non-visible activities. They're extremely important, but again, the same Drucker's dilemma of urgent and important. Some consignment has to go, and that's urgent, and that always gets a priority vis-a-vis a more important thing like spending time on setting clear, smart and stretched objectives. So neither I as a boss have time, nor I as an employee consider it important. That's one part of it. The second part is the HR's share of blame is this, that we keep following up with line managers wanting to know, please send a report whether you have set objectives. So we also seem to be more interested in getting that report, which we can inform the upper management, saying that in X department 80% of employees have been covered, and Y department 70, and see it has not done, sir, will you put in a word and all that, so we also get very in that sense um, status report driven, and not so much in terms of uh, have I lost you all?
No, sir. We can clearly hear you. You are there, sir. You're very much there. Yeah.
Fine. So and that happens according to me because of two things. One is HR being more interested in completing the exercise, not so much perceiving what it's supposed to do, and B, I think partly because of our own inadequate knowledge of business. We glibly talk to department saying that you must cascade the thrust areas or whatever it is identified at the unit level, and but we, because of our inadequate knowledge of business at times, we are not able to actually help them how to do that. We only glibly talk about it. So I think that's our problem. And I think there is this bit of an issue, which I'm not saying it's cannot be addressed, but at times everything to convert into a measurable numerical thing is also at times a bit difficult. Don't want to get back to Einstein's statement, who said once that all that can be counted doesn't count, and all that counts cannot be counted. So there is that bit of a problem also in terms of. And then the more important thing, which Mr. Lonikar has already mentioned, somehow line managers for many HR processes, and most certainly PMS, they feel it is subcontracted to HR department, because they don't realize as much that their his team's performance or individual employee's performance is so critical for his business success. They tend to feel that when it comes to performance PMS, it's HR's department job to ensure that it is done or whatever. The other, of course, is because at the end of the journey is rewards, and at times rating to be communicated, and ratings leading to, in some organizations, exit from the organization, all that. There is a bit of unpleasantness associated, and there's a lot of research, including in Western countries, that in one study it was found out that 52% of line managers hate performance appraisal as much as the employees, because of, and nobody wants to be the bad messenger. So the tendency to put the blame on HR and all that is there, which doesn't help. HR saying that line manager is responsible and vice versa also doesn't help, because I think this is an coordinated effort. One has to take full accountability, and I think what Mr. Lonikar is doing, not wherever HR department has been alive to that reality, it takes on that responsibility, infuses that kind of a commitment in the line management, gets the top management totally aligned to it, uh, demonstrates its seriousness. Um, there, I think PMS works, PMS has worked. And of course, the most important aspect being that the constructive dialogue, which Mr. Lonikar talked about. Somehow, many of our managers are either not trained, not skilled, or are in rush. So somewhere they feel their job is to justify the rating that has been decided, then give a constructive feedback which can help an individual introspect, reflect, and chart the journey of development, his or her journey of development. So because the rating is already known to me, I condition I design my feedback, and at times it ends up being being critical on the person instead of being constructive on what the person can do, can develop. You know, that's yeah. There are problems, but there are also success stories. Some organizations have surely used it as a very successful vehicle of growth and development. And wherever the organizations have been able to do, it has been a success. Yes, there is a natural, let's say, um, discomfort in being evaluated, because at the end of the day, some evaluation does get subjective. You cannot tell, you cannot get out of it, because I think it's in some way, in spite of the best of the techniques, it's in some way it is germane to the process of evaluation, that there is a bit of a subjectivity. Even if I intend to be objective, the person whom I'm evaluating, I don't know to what extent that person feels so. This is one dilemma or problem associated with that. Yeah.
Very true, SRK. I think if I put it in a nutshell, there are three things that I take from, the reasons why it has been a subject of so much controversy. One is important versus urgent, or urgent versus important. So I always do urgent things, and I leave, the important things are taken side seeds. Then inadequacy of knowledge among HR, because they are driving this system about the business. So if my knowledge about business is weak, I'll not be able to use this tool effectively. And obviously quantifying or having smart goals in place. I'll push for that, but am I ready, or how that is it feasible to have it every time? And constructive dialogue. So my managers are not that trained, or they are not skilled in delivering that or doing that. Plus, is my organization or are my people mature to take that feedback in a constructive way? Am I ready to accept whatever is true to my performance or to my personality? I also need to understand that part. Am I so I always say that, be ready for feedback, or you should accept feedback, be open to feedback. But am I ready to accept what is shared with me? So that's also very important, to know that readiness of organization to use system effectively, and how trained and efficient or capable my HR department is to become a custodian of the system. Very interesting reasons, SRK, you shared, and thank you so much for that. I would move to next question, which is very important for all of us to know. Sir, Mr. Lonikar, this is for you. One of the best PMSs that you would have handled, and what made it so good?
In the good old days, we used to do benchmarking, and the benchmarking process was like, you go and talk to your friends in other companies. Like, I'll go to SRK and ask him, how is your PMS? And when he needs, he will come to me or go to another. Now, of course, we have experts like Naman and consultants like that. They can collect the data and get back to us in a very capsulated manner. But the experience, most of the time it has been, when you go and say that we want to benchmark with your PMS, and the answer would be coming from the other side is that, oh, we are revising our PMS, so there would be hardly 2, 3, or 4 cycles any company would have seen their PMS has remained the same. It goes through research and change consistently. That the dynamism is because every time you run that cycle, you learn something that needs to be improved or removed from that, and that's a continuous process. So it's very difficult for me to say which is the best that I have seen so far. But I would say, again, most of the PMS by design, they are very good. You will find very few PMS where the design flaw is there, like goal setting, for example. And if they do not put appropriate SMART criteria into the goal setting, probably there is a scope for failure of the process itself. But by and large, the education is good enough with HR people, smart HR professionals. They design and they bring it appropriately. The challenge is in the execution part, again, coming back to that. And that is where most of the time we see that the PMS that we want as a design that we have made, and the PMS that we are executing, those two are very different things. So if I have to say, what is the best PMS that I have seen? Let me just say that, talk about my current company, Pernod Ricard PMS. And we have done tons of work in this area. Okay. And when we realize that the same thing that I spoke earlier, it's not very different, that my employees also had similar kind of impressions and grievances and all that. It is universal, nothing new about that. But then we realize that the first and foremost thing is that if I have 100% conviction as HR that my PMS is the best, why my employees and managers do not believe in that? And then I decided we'll take the responsibility to pass on the same conviction to these people. And one of the best things that we could do was to make appropriate communication and education. So we went to every part of the country, wherever we may have small team of 8 or 10 people, we did workshops with people, explained to them, we listened to them, and everybody was doing only, throwing bricks at the people who were conducting these workshops, that this is a lousy system and get rid of this kind of thing, that was the feeling. But the listening and asking them questions, how we can make it better, making that change has helped. Second is educating them that why this system is important for you, and more they realize that it is about them. It is not about HR ticking the box saying that we have done this year's appraisal. It is about you as an employee. It is about you as a manager. It is an important thing, and it worked very well. In doing that, what we have done is that we have clarified the role of the manager. So we did deep training to all the managers, but we didn't stop at that. We went and announced this to all the employees. So the classical story that happens with the employee in the appraisal discussion is a manager says, your rating is this, and the employee says, I was expecting better, and manager says, yes, I rated you better, but in the calibration, the top management, the MD, the HR, they forced me to reduce that, or because of the bell curve, we had to do this kind of thing. So we went to all employees publicly and we said that nothing like that happens in Pernod Ricard. When your manager says this is your rating, that is your rating final. We do calibration to harmonize and make sure that there are some managers who are very hard in rating people, some are very soft, and the process integrity check. That is the purpose of calibration. But in calibration, we will not change ratings of people unless the manager agrees. And when there is a change, then the change has to be communicated to the manager. They have to be convinced about it. They say yes, only then the system changes, and they go back and say that this is my rating. And this was completely transparently clarified to the people. First year when we did that, all managers, of course, they came and they started, beating me, saying that why are you doing this to us? Abhi to hamare paas koi excuse hi nahi bacha hai, aapne ye chalu kar diya, to type of thing, But finally now they are feeling that they got power. 3 years we have done that. This is the 4th year. Now they say that now we have power. Now our employees believe that we can rate them appropriately, and that's why I don't have to use authority on the employees, and they know what is performance and how manager does that kind of thing. Then this calibration process, that was a big challenge, and we clarified that to the calibrating authorities, because higher the position in the organization, they believe they have to reduce something. Okay, and this is something wrong thinking, but it is conventionally true in most of the companies. So if I bring 100 people in the box, then the top man has to reduce it by 20, 30 or 40 just to influence that, saying that I have done something there. We clarified this to the calibration levels across the organization. Your job is not to reduce or increase anything. You have to check what is right and what is not right. And that is as per the defined process, you have to check that. Do not use your brains into that. And then people go and say that why this employee is being rated like that, And the question that I ask in calibration is that, have you seen that employee perform? The manager who is seeing that person perform knows what is the rating for that person. How do you know, sitting in head office 1,000 miles away from that workplace, that he or she is doing well or not? You don't have any right to make a comment on the final rating. And slowly, then the leadership team started stepping
gradually.
That we don't want to get into that, And the big one we did, again, as I said earlier, we focused on the appraisal discussions. And we told managers that these are the 8 things that you must talk in the appraisal process. And we told employees that your manager must talk these 8 things here. and you have to participate. We talk to people about how do you handle your emotions. So this is the whole thing is a human process, all said and done. A huge amount of emotions go into the process. Huge, meaning there is no limit to that. And that's why people have sleepless nights before and after, and then relationships are strained. People even resign and leave the companies, all because of that I was not given a fair treatment. So how do you
So,
handle that? Make sure that discussion happens and you record it appropriately. And to measure what happened, we've been doing this performance management system survey after 1.5 months of closure of this thing, meaning the month we give increment, 1.5 months after that, we do a survey and we ask these questions to employees. And that those questions also ask about manager. My manager gave me appropriate feedback. We ask a bold question. I agree with the final rating given to me. It's very difficult to achieve a good response, but my experience is that 85% of the people say that yes, I achieved a good rating or reasonable rating here, because of the communication. That if you are say meets expectation is your middle rating, you have to tell people that meets expectation is a great
is
rating
what?
because you set expectations and you achieved it. You should dance at that. Why are you feeling sorry about it? So these things have helped. So to that extent, my sense is talking about things like bell curve or not allowing that factor of subjectivity to be a part of discussion. These are not very healthy things when you go to the employees. Bell curve, I'm a big fan of bell curve. It is one of the most effective process of differentiation. But this is a back end process. No employee participates in bell curve process. And why do you go and tell people we have a bell curve? You never
True,
go and tell
true.
them how your compensation is being fixed. You never go and tell why
Exactly.
you selected this person after interview, but you tell them that your rating is because of bell curve. Because this is what I say, abuse of the system. People don't have to know
Exactly.
the bell curve. You don't have to talk about it. But differentiation is a must in the business. It is
True.
about equity, not equality. So how much ever you
Very true.
contribute, you will get the reward for that. So this is where I think my experience is that if you really put your focus on that, and I do that only because I believe in talent management, in life cycle management of an employee. PMS is central. If you do
True.
PMS well, rest of the things will automatically fall in line. That is my experience.
Very true, sir. I think very comprehensively and specifically, very precisely, you explained how. I mean, why and how this best system, how the best system looks like. So I can say that communication, transparency, open discussion, and ensure or promote people, ensure that they speak up their mind about the system, their experiences about the system through PMS survey. That's one of the things, or that's one of the initiatives that you have taken in your organizations to ensure that PMS is taken in a right way or in a right spirit. I think very important, sir, that calibration, ensuring that people understand the purpose or objective of it, and just not going by their own. So human intervention, reducing that human intervention by defining how can you do the bell curve, or how can you apply that bell curve rating, or how can you differentiate between two individuals perform that same level on the objectives given to them. So we need to define that. We need to be very specific, ensuring that processes are well defined and it is understood by users. So that user understanding of the process is also very critical to make it successful, so that they don't use it as a rescue tool. Like you mentioned, that let people not use it to give an excuse to their subordinates. So here we need to understand that relationship management is one part, or being sensitive to others is one part, but there is an objective of having this system in the organization, and which is critical for any business. So that is how that is what role of HR comes into picture to make this system a successful for any business. They need to ensure that these things are in place. So thank you so much, sir, for helping us know how the best system looks like, and I'm sure our viewers will be benefited from it, and they'll be able to do the correction in their approach. I would not say in the system, but in their way of dealing, or in their way of managing the performance management system. So I would move to next one, which is also very important question, and I want both of you to help us know this. What are the challenges that that pandemic has thrown or created for performance management system? I would start with SRK. Sir, according to you, what challenges has pandemic created for PMS?
Yeah, pandemic has created, I think, three different challenges as far as PMS is concerned. My mind. One, I could call it as uh, business environment related or external. The other is organizational, and third is individual. To demystify this, by business environment, I mean there has been a demand deficit in the market, and there are lockdown mandated um, difficulties or changes. This is external to, this is possibly common to all organizations, but external to them, but which heavily impacts their business and the way they work. So, we all know about it. So I don't have to dwell much about it. We all know about how different businesses have gone through very bad cycles in terms of demand, and because of COVID lockdown restrictions, operations cannot start, or supplies cannot reach, or finished goods cannot go, and things like that. The other organization related challenges are in terms of organization having to reset their targets, reset their goals. In fact, many organizations were extremely ill prepared in terms of dealing with this pandemic, in terms of it called for work from home, and not many organizations were ready to handle it. And another study by Naman has thrown open that data. Then, organization had to revisit. Then the supervisors had their issues. These are organizational issues, because people were used to giving, assigning work, monitoring them, watching their people do it, suggesting corrections, improvements, and all that. So there was a lot of comfort with supervisors in terms of assignment or assigning work and monitoring work, and knowing who is doing what, and who is doing a better job, or who needs to be helped, and things like that. So naturally, that kind of role which a supervisor used to play has undergone a change, which directly impacts performance and performance evaluation. The third, of course, is uh, the individual. At the individual level, I think individuals are passing through huge stress. There's a fear of loss of jobs, loss of earnings. In some families, health-related challenges. People not being familiar with the new way of working. People wondering how their performance will now be evaluated, because they cannot produce the same results which earlier they could. um, so all in all, these factors have heavily impacted performance management systems. There are organizations who have worked around that. So organizations have helped employee, that earlier what one talked about is check-ins, periodic check-ins, the superiors, the boss. Um, Instead of getting into a number-driven evaluation or rating-driven evaluation, can we look at more how the person is contributing? And as I think somewhere Professor Mortensen of INSEAD mentioned, put compassion where your numbers were. If we are earlier evaluating in terms of numbers and rating and things like that, put compassion, because that is what is going to help a person perform better, collaborate in a virtual situation, and things like that. So, in short, um, how do we now redistribute? How do we set new targets, redistribute work, support more than evaluate, uh, uh, provide help and support, at times psychological. It may not be just only work related. Um, and as in one of the organizations I was associated, the employee's highest comfort point was, sir, for the first time, I have my boss spending so much of time trying to find out how I am and how is my family doing, and that's provided great sense of vigor in me or motivation in me to contribute. So contribution more than just results is what is going to, because in a COVID situation, sometimes results may be difficult, but whether the person is contributing, collaborating, committed to the organization, demonstrating agility, adaptability, because things are changing very fast. How flexible is he? How rigid? All that. I think these are the new measures of, let's say, evaluating a person or doing performance, appraisal of a person.
Very true, sir. I think
some
this
quick thoughts,
is a
that's
shift.
all. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a shift that we can see during crisis or during pandemic that has
Right.
taken in the system. So compassion over numbers, which is very important, because we are working virtually, we are operating virtually, and you need to provide that mental support to individuals so that they are able to focus on work. And that's where compassion over numbers. That's very interesting, sir. I'll go to Lonikar, sir, if you can just throw some light on how what challenges pandemic has thrown on PMS.
See, the big challenge is for companies who had their appraisal cycles in July or October, or they are coming in December. They are going to have a tough situation. Those who completed in March, who have April, March here, they will have bigger challenge when they complete this financial year. So most of the other July, October cycle companies, they have experienced it. The biggest challenge for appraisals and process is, how do you really treat this non-performance? So you've not achieved your results as per the budget or goals that has been set. And maybe a salesperson, manufacturing person, supply chain, finance, HR, whichever function you are, you have a quantitative goal, and that goal has not been achieved. Okay, and we know that for few weeks, months, and for some people it could be half year, depending on their cycle timing. So if they have not achieved, naturally their rating has to be below par, because business performance is below par, your performance is below par, the performance rating has to be below par. Simple logic, and nobody can complain about it. So there is no question of discussing this, and this is what I've been talking since beginning, the subjectivity and the human factor in that. So if it was a mechanical process, you just put it into the PMS, and PMS will tell you this person is below expectations, and everybody is below expectations, and you close the PMS. Why are you brooding about it? But no company would do that. And again, I have some very strong views on this, and pardon me for that. This last point you were talking about compassion, which is very important factor when we talk about a human being. And organization is a human part of the business, right? But fact of the matter is that we have to understand, a business will never do anything unless it gets anything in return for that. It's a simple principle. So even if we do CSR, we always do CSR with a ROI that is expected.
Correct.
No company goes and gives it to a charity like a temple, saying that I will put it in your box and not ask for a receipt on that. It doesn't happen like that. When you talk about people, compassion, empathy, these factors, incidentally, I think April or May sometime, there was a meeting like this of a bunch of CEOs. Okay, some industries association had all called them, and they invited me to speak in that forum. And during Q&A, one of the CEOs, they asked me a question saying that, so government of India says you cannot reduce salaries or you cannot not pay salaries to people, but our business is shut. And if we have to reduce salaries of people or not pay for no work, no pay principle, or I want to reduce my workforce, what advice would you give? Because I'm an HR guy, they thought I will be able to guide them on that. And I said, maybe a right question to a wrong person, because your question is more towards a legal point. You want to understand what legal implications and what government will do. So you should talk to public affairs people or legal people, not a HR guy first. Second and most important, I said, if you are going to reduce some people today, you are assuming that you are going to shut down that much part of your business. He said, no, we're not going to do that. I said, then you will recruit people again, right? And you don't know when is this going to end. And in April, everybody was hoping by June we will be back.
Yeah.
So I said, after 2 months, you go to the market, and this is a very small market. People will look at your company and they will say, this is the company when employees were in the maximum distress. That is the time they threw on the roads. They cut their salaries. They, did not support their employees. I don't want to work for this company. So you will only get those people who are not employable in other companies. And you always want the best of the best in the market. What is the reputation you are putting on the block by reducing people and saving salary? Most importantly, look at your balance sheet, the financial statements. By doing this, how much money are you saving? It's peanuts compared with all other expenses. So why are we making now? Why I'm telling you, Biba, is this is a philosophical position HR must take in every forum in our companies, and we discussed it in our board when this discussion came. And I doubt if there is any company who never had this discussion during last 6 months. What do we do? Because there is no performance. How do we do that? How to give increments, how to give bonus, how to give promotions to people. And we have had multiple experts like Avon, Mercer, and the compensation benefit market people. They have been studying and bringing report after report to teach us what is the right approach to do in this kind of thing, So the point is that when situation is beyond your control, you are ready to put your efforts. You are making yourself available, and I am from that generation where I worked with trade unions. Okay. And we know that, and SRK knows that very well. You don't ask this question to trade unions. If your company's bus does not reach the factory, you cannot say, you will not come and work, I will not pay you. You have to pay that day to those people. You understand? It's very clear. Otherwise, you will not run the factory tomorrow if you do something like that. Because there was a counter pressure. Now, today's employees, they do not have a representation. They have
they do not.
What will they do? They will leave the company and go. That is the only thing they can do. And that is where I think HR has to do this role of employee advocacy very strongly and put in front of the management that when we made 140% kind of a profit in a particular year as a windfall, maybe for whatever good reason, we did not give that 40% extra to the employees. Now this year I'm making 40% short. Why are you passing on to the employees? An employee does not like speculation. They want a fixed salary in their payslip coming every month because their risk-taking ability is very limited. And an employer who protects them from that risk is an employer they would love to work for longer periods of time. Now, this is something that HR has to explain to the business. Otherwise, it is very easy for the business to make decisions like this at the drop of the hat. Nobody opposes that. And we make calculations and show savings and this kind of thing. It doesn't work. But this is a dichotomy that you have a workforce that is completely, like SRK very rightly said, people are afraid of losing their jobs, their health, their life. And that fear, anything you do today, they will not react, I can tell you. They will accept it. But what we need today in the recovery phase is we need a motivated, engaged, productive workforce to come back who will give 150%, 170% of their efficiency to really compensate for what we have lost. So managing performance during this period, if you go and make a statement to people, it is the performance of business is not lowered because of your fault, but neither has it been lowered because of the company's fault. Now let us share the responsibility.
Let us share. Yeah, very true, sir.
But you have to talk to them, and not say that you did not perform and you will not get your increment on bonus. That attitude is something harmful, So how to balance that? Easier said than done. But the biggest thing, more than to your point of compassion, I tell to my directors and my leaders in the company, don't be compassionate. Think that you need this guy. If he is not there, your job is not going to happen. So even if you say human is not a resource, today I say human is a resource. Take him as a resource and please value him, respect him and compensate him because you need them. I think this is a language business understands better than the language of compassion and empathy. That's my experience. Not good, but it is a
Yeah,
reality.
yeah. I think if I summarize what both of you just now mentioned, I think uh, way of managing aspirations of individual employees working remotely nowadays is something that HR needs to do, and we need to be real, or we need to be aware of the reality of the business also, where how my what is the phase that my organization is passing by, and that can be done from top to bottom through HR. So we need to be aware about the reality of the business. In addition to that, we also we need to be sensitive to individual employees requirements, or mental needs, physical needs, and having a process or a way of managing that through open communication, sound communication, continuous communication about the status of our business. Where do we stand today, and how much will take more, or what all of us need to do together to come out of the situation. So you're very right, sir. We need to partner with the organization, or there should be there need not to be employer employee relationship, but it has to be all of us have to come together and then run through the journey of this pandemic. You're very right, sir. I fully agree. And compassion could be one of the elements that we need to deploy to remain sensitive to individual employees. So I think rightly said. And with this, I would like to take up last question. What can be done to make PMS successful? I think that is the question that our viewers also have. What can be done to make PMS successful, independent of any pandemic? So how the system should be, so that any crisis situation comes and the system is able to withstand the storm. Yes, sir. So I think SRK, if you can just throw some light on this.
Well, I think the earlier discussion has already, thrown
Yeah.
some light on this. Um, uh, a performance culture in the organization and reinforcing that is important, and nothing better than a very robust performance management system. You know, so where the objectives are very clearly and uh, very precisely set, uh, where employee is also made a partner in the process, and linkage of that with what the organization is wanting to achieve in course of the year. So in that sense, cascading of that. Uh, Very important is not just setting the targets or objectives, but also creating a mechanism to enable a person to perform. Because I think no organization is going to gain by taking a stock at the end of the year and giving a rating. That doesn't help. All you may have is many people who have not achieved, or some people who have achieved and some who have not. But that's no consolation to an organization. That may at best be an input for deciding the rewards, but that's not the raison d'être of the organization. The purpose of existence of an organization is how do we collectively uh, achieve what the organization is supposed to achieve. And in that context, the boss has a huge role in enabling the person to perform, taking periodic stock, suggesting, giving feedback which is constructive in nature, sitting along with the deputy in understanding what support he or she needs, so that the person can catch up and make up. And of course, as Mr. Lonikar has beautifully told, don't take the employee by surprise. What you tell in course of the year is different from what you tell at the end of the year, just because you want to justify the rating that has been involved. And the points which he mentioned, I think, if every organization is able to ensure, first is educate the line manager in terms of the system, empower that person so that you don't doctor the rate or the evaluation of the immediate superior sitting 1,000 kilometers away when you don't have line of sight of what the person is doing. Empower the immediate superior, stand by him, enable him how he can get the best out of his person, apart from, of course, periodically guiding, supporting, and then evaluating, because this evaluation is, whether we like it or not, is an important input for many of the HR interventions. And I think despite what many other companies globally might have done, especially the those in the knowledge space in US, right from Abode to and a lot of consultancies in India, I think we are somewhere. Our level of maturity is still rather low, and maybe in that context, what Ms. Lonikar earlier mentioned, whether we call it as bell curve or whatever, may have to be there. But only thing is, let's not alter the curve sitting in the head office, but make the line manager do it. So the line manager should, apart from enabling, should also have muster this, the strength to face up his person and give a very honest feedback with the intention of making the individual reflect and then improve. In that context, some things like uh, self appraisal or all that is going to surely help. This is something which McGregor advocated way back in 1957, but I think we have some long way to go in that. But those things will surely help a person, because at the end of the day, whether I accept what my boss has said or not, just or to protect my ego, but if I'm honest to myself, I will know somewhere that yes, the way I was rated or what my boss told is substantially correct. I need to be put in that reflective mode. So I think that's what is going to, and then the fairness, which Ms. Plonikar very importantly mentioned, is like very, very important. Don't tinker with the system to favor the people you like. Respect sanctity and do what is right. Absolutely.
Very true, sir. Yeah. Yes, yes, Lonika, sir. Anything that you would like to add on to this? What can be done to make it more?
This was very, very comprehensive, what SRK said, it covers pretty much all the points that we need to be mindful of, My sense is that, first for the business leaders and the senior leadership of the company, HR must ask these questions, whatever way. You do not compromise with production system. You do not compromise with sales system. You do not allow compromise with finance system. Why do you allow compromise with performance management system? So if they say that we don't know, then you should go and tell them that let us kill this system, which is not respected by our top management, because nobody loves it, So we will not implement this here performance management. And sometimes when you have something, you start taking it for granted, but you don't have it, and then you realize value, Maybe giving an example, what happens if we don't have a PMS? And then they will tell you these 20 things will happen. And are those 20 things still happening because having the PMS? Something like that. I'm just making it. Second and most important aspect is that I have done more and enough discussions, research, whatever word you use on this. There is no way so far to find out how to remove subjectivity from the PMS process. So the only conclusion, at least I have come to, is accept it. That it is a performance of a human being assessed by another human being. And both being human beings, there will be subjectivity. I have had situations like, and I have, in one of the factories when I was very young, I used to be a factory HR manager. We tried this, that we did a very quantitative kind of thing, and then the factory manager said, we will not interfere into this, we just put the numbers, whatever comes, we give that as a rating. And we did that, and it came out to be such a weird picture that nobody wanted to go with that. The guys who are the top of the organization performers, they are sitting somewhere in the middle, and the people you would not like to have around, they are seen as the stars in the company. So these multiple mechanisms people have tried, but nothing so far has been found. So in my company today, what we are doing is, we have a 50-50 kind of a weightage to what is the performance and how it is performed. So 50% is on the goals and quantifiable part of it, and balance 50% is on how did you deliver the behaviors, competencies, and the values of the organization. And then comes the overall performance rating, OPR we call it, So we are accepting that subjectivity is going to be there. The moment it comes there, then you, as I earlier said, educate the managers that they have to understand what you are going to do today is your karma. You will get the fruits of that. Do right or wrong to the people, that will come back to you in some or the other form. And very shortly it will come back. Definitely before your retirement, it will come back. People understand this, and
That's
they
very
start
true.
learning. And this point of the fairness that SRK also underscored, being fair and just is very important, I can tell you, with people. You don't have to be kind with people. They don't come to you for kindness. They go to some other place. Okay, they come to you. They want a fair and reasonable treatment for the work they are doing in the company. And this is where again I come back to the bell curve. Aggressively, we have to differentiate performer versus high performer. More and more you do that, people will be unhappy. But if they are unhappy, then the example of Jack Welch that SRK used in the opening remarks, that 2017 10 what GE followed for 20 years under Jack Welch, then these 70 people, they should have left every year the company, because everybody wants to be in that 20. Nobody likes to be in that 70, but this company valued those 70 people as they were called as valued contributors. So it is possible, and people understand it, that yes, in my class, if there is a ranking and I am not in top 10, I understand that I didn't do well to get into top 10, but I can get there if I work harder. But that's not my motivation. I would rather spend time with my friends than study. So I accept number one, number two, whoever is there, and I salute those people. The same logic applies in the organization. But that's not something that we believe, that we think that everybody should be there, and to justify why you are not there, we use some kind of a stupid logic behind that, which actually plays with the credibility of the management. And most important, this is a tactical thing, which is much in HR's hands. Make PMS easy to understand and easy to operate. If the goal setting process takes 6 hours, 8 hours for people to write, iterations, comes back, goes back, paper-based, pencil-based, system-based, all these things, if that happens, if you're using a tool, that tool is flickering, it is not helping you to put right things there, I'll tell you, people will get disengaged in that. And same thing about completion of the process, that if I have to write, my simple ask always has been with the consultants and from my team is that when I do my goals properly, my appraisal writing at the end of the year should not be more than 30 minutes.
Yeah. Okay.
But in many companies, we have systems which takes days. People go home, they spend nights on that. They sit with data and they attach, all sorts of forms, and it becomes like a thick book of performance, because they want to prove that I have done a great job. And after that, when they get a rating which is lower than their expectation, the only thing they carry home is frustration. So if a simple system, easy to understand, easy to implement, people would love to participate and they will use it throughout the year. It's not a year-end process. Year-end is only the appraisal cycle that ends there. But throughout the year, you can use that as a project management tool to understand where you are, what is your run rate, how much you have achieved, and how much is balanced for rest of the year, what support resources you need during this period. All this discussion should be done throughout the year, and then you're not surprised. You cannot say that there was one ball and I had to make 8 runs and I failed to make that kind of thing. It doesn't happen in business. No business sets goals that requires wonders to be done by Superman in the company. It is meant for ordinary people like us who have good capability to deliver, and then goals are given. But still we fail to achieve because of variety of reasons. That's a different subject altogether.
I agree, sir. I fully agree. If the system is complex, it's more like liability and then opportunity. So
and it's
people
boring,
take it as, it's boring. And that could be one of the reasons why this is the topic of controversial, or that's that could be one of the reasons why people don't like the system, why they don't like the process, because they feel that it's time consuming. So very right, sir. Keeping it simple and easy to for users and also for business to see the business results will be important. Plus, sir, in a nutshell, I think educating, empowering, being mindful of certain things about differentiating between performers or individuals, Accountability or ownership lies with managers, that no, I have given you this rating and based on the criteria that was decided is very important. So ownership, taking that ownership of, yes, being truthful, being honest, and that is how that is reflected through organization culture, and embracing the system. We cannot ignore the system that's there. So let us accept it with open arms, and let us make it let us make it operational, let us make it useful, beneficial for the organization. With that, I would take up one question from our viewer. Will structured training of HR functionaries and business managers on PMS help make it successful? So any of you, I mean, I open the session for the platform for both of you to respond. Anyone can take up. Yes, Lonika sir, if you want to go ahead.
Training will help as much as training helps in other areas. So if you train somebody, for example, say presentation skills training, what would be the success of that training?
Yeah.
Exactly the same parameter you use for performance management system training. What would be the success of this training, you know? So the training effectiveness, as you understand better, depends on variety of factors, you know. And that's why I've this word communication and education more than training. That if education is more like, you know, bringing right understanding in the minds of people by providing the knowledge of the subject, because the idea of this knowledge of PMS itself is contaminated, and that's where we started, that it is not a HR system, it's a business system. Now, fundamentally, there is a flaw in the knowledge itself. So the moment people understand, okay, so performance is business and performance management is business management system, now I understand. So I have financial management system, which talks about money and books of accounts, and I have business management or performance management, which talks about the performance of the people. The moment that is clarified to people, I don't think they need to be trained. And again, this last point I made, if it is easy to operate, then you will not need to train people also. But people want to get into that again and again, because they still feel that there will be somebody who will bring, you know, maybe a magic wand and make this whole thing great for us as employees, rather than making it great only for the company. That's what my sense is. But of course, in absence of anything else, I'm a big fan of training, and training always gives you some returns, directly, indirectly, short term or long term. I would advocate we must train people.
And I think you are right, sir, with, you know, knowing that fact, we have come up with our certification program on performance management system, which is not just for HR. It is not limited to HR. I think the program will definitely help business managers also, line managers, operations team also, to understand, get into the nitty-gritties of the system, of the process, and handle it effectively. Because it's not like all of us discussed that PMS HR can be custodian, but we are the ones who will have to run it efficiently. So our certification program, which is FIX, you know, performance harvesting and improving quality through the system, will definitely help people get into the process and use it, not taking it as a burden. It is not a liability, rather it's an opportunity to see the business outcome. And I would request all of you, my viewers also, please, just register for the certification program. It is just, without giving it a second thought, that's going to be of high value for you also and for your business also. So thank you, sir, for bringing out with, you know, that point of training people. And the question was raised by one of the viewers, that whether it will help or not. So I think that's very important. It will be good to have something in place, and Naman has come up with its flagship program on a performance management system. Get certified, understand nuances of the system, and be efficient in managing system within your organization. So come and enroll for the program. These are the details. Thanks, Shambhavi. These are the details which you can see on the screen, and feel free to reach out to us to know more about the program. And we are here to help you. We are here to make it a successful tool for the business. This is not a HR tool, this is a business tool. So please register yourself. Yes. Now I'll move to next question from Bipasha. Yes, SRK, this for you. Do you think that competency mapping is gaining a prominent place in PMS system and should be a mandatory tool to introduce to make our PMS strong?
Okay, whether competency mapping is essential for PMS, uh, I would put it this way, that it's always desirable to have, because as Mr. Lonikar earlier mentioned, that a good PMS not only identifies the performance targets to be achieved, but also appraises or evaluates a person against uh, behaviors that will enable performance. And if you are looking at behaviors that will enable performance, I think you can't do it. Or if you have to do a proper job of it, competencies mapped relevant for that level or that role is surely going to be of great help. Okay. So I would not say that it is essential prerequisite, but surely a big help. Okay. Both in terms of behavior enablers and also in terms of the processes that will enable achieve those results. So it's that. That's
Great,
my
sir.
view.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, SRK. I think that would have addressed Bipasha's query. Sir, I have another question. Calibration is the biggest challenge. How do we manage resistance of both employees and reporting managers? I think much have been talked on this, but still, how to make it not a contentious process or step in the system. Yes, Lonikar, sir, over to you.
The question is, why calibrate? Okay. If that is answered properly, and you get very varied answers to that question, meaning most of the time the top-down approach of the senior management is the guys below us, they may not have done a good job, so we have to correct it. Okay. Which itself is a flawed approach. You have to trust, and this is where again this training that you are talking about, Viva, this comes very if they get clarity, and this is not what you are doing, not only for HR, but it is also for business managers. They must understand this whole thing in depth, and it would be good if they participate in such kind of certification. And if they are competent, then why do you have to review, what they have done? But there are people, and you have to push them back. Like I can tell you, when I was working for Honeywell long time back, so when I joined, the company had about 900 odd people. And of course, after that, then this whole industry started growing. So we grew in a big way. So the CEO of the company then, okay, who was the first person who actually founded Honeywell in India, this global technology business I was working for, he recruited all the people that happened in the first part of the company. Okay, and then almost up to 900,000, and that is the time I joined the company. Incidentally, he knew everybody, all the 1,000 people, and it was like something amazing kind of a capability. In 1 year's time, after my 1.5 years, maybe we were about 2,500 people. So when we were doing the appraisals and compensation decisions, the CEO will sit and he will go name by name. Okay, so first year when I did 1,200, 1,400 kind of people, and he did it name by name. And I was amazed. I said, why is he doing that? Why should he decide whose rating should this and whose band should change and whose compensation should be less or more and all that, But then I was told, no, he knows everybody in the company. Then when I joined, after that, when I hired people, I knew that he doesn't know this new 1,000 people that I have hired. And when that cycle came and he asked me, where is that file? When are we going to sit? I said, no, we are not going to sit with you. He said, no, I have to see that, And I said, why do you have to see? But I do that every year. I said, that is okay, but that's history, right? Now you don't know these people. You knew those 1,200 people. This balanced 1,000 people, you don't know. He was a wise man. and very respectful of HR. He believed in talent and HR, and he agreed, and he said, "You are very right. Good, you pushed me back." He stopped doing that. But I can tell you, I have had reverse experiences also. And this is where this calibration thing comes into problem. Because one person or a bunch of 4 people sit together, they apply their mind. I have seen in calibration meetings people conniving with each other. That when it comes to my department, you support me. When it comes to your department, I will support you. And this is complete contamination of the process, abuse of the process. And nobody knows it outside the room that senior leaders are doing like this. You cannot use rewards as the ratings as a mechanism of rewarding people. It is not a reward. It is a feedback of how they have performed. People must understand. So the reward comes after the rating is done. Rating cannot be a reward. But these are some of the things that people have to. So calibration to me is an essential part of PMS for the purpose that if you are defined a process, calibration must see has the process been followed or not. Number one. Number two, has it been followed consistently or not across levels, across functions? And this is a scenario in every company. You will see that some managers are very tough in rating their people. Some managers are very generous. This is where that role comes into that. And what kind of biases have entered into the system while making the decision? That calibration has to remove. Beyond that, if calibration starts making decisions or changing decisions of the managers, it's a dangerous thing. So what we have done at Pernod Ricard is that we do 2 or 3 level calibration depending on the hierarchy of the organization. And now the senior management only looks at the top level of bands, top 2 bands after the directors. Rest of the organization we don't look at. And we are given the freedom to each director that you go and for your own system with your own HR manager. I will not question you there. And they are able to do a good job because when people come, and we do this after this PMS every year, we make announcement and tell people, this is open door policy. Anybody has a grievance, you can go and approach anybody. And first year I did that, almost 20-25 people came to me. Last year I didn't have anybody coming because now their manager answering those questions. Not a single case came to my office last year. From 25 odd cases, first year, and this was the 4th year. So this year I'm waiting what happens now. But when you do that diligently and sincerity, not as a part of your authority or because now and this is a tendency of a manager. I have always seen that when you take a draft to your manager and show this letter I have drafted, they will change a comma and full stop in that because they are the boss. They have to do some change. Don't do that in the calibration process. That's not good for people. So
I think, yes,
it can be made effective by writing it well and administering it well and not allowing this kind of a bias to get into the system.
I think so. You're very right. We also need to, understand this reality that the system will take its own time to set. So, like you said that last year or last year you had 25 cases coming to you. And last year you didn't have any. So people take time to experience, understand, and then apply techniques which are right to do that. Very correctly mentioned, sir. And calibration is very important. We need to understand what's the process of doing it rightly. So yes, and with that, I think thanks to both of you. If I can take last question, if I can take liberty of time to take that last question, what are the experiences after bell curve is being removed? So what happens if bell curve is removed? So SRK, if you would like to throw some light on it, because I know bell curve is dear to you also. Yes, sir.
You are asking Mr. Lonikar to respond?
SRK, I think. I think I would request you to
Okay,
throw some
fair.
light. Calibration,
Fair.
Mr. Lonikar has already shared a lot about calibration.
Yeah. So my views are this, that surely bell curve has its pluses and minuses, and now suddenly the Western world seems to have woken up, especially the knowledge-based industry seems to have woken up to the flip side of the bell curve. Maybe there is some merit in that. But I think to discard Belcar altogether would be like throwing the baby with the bathwater. We need to see what are the pluses in it, and what are some of the disadvantages in it. In case of the Western world, one of the reasons that has prompted it is because there is scarcity of people, scarcity of good people, and a lot of thinking has gone into this aspect that should we have an accountability focus in PMS or a development focus? Should we categorize people as good performance and reward them and treat the rest not good and all that? Or should we get into more investing in them and all that? So it does, because in the Western context, there is, of course, these issues of, uh, let's say, scarcity of resource. Well, in India, for two reasons, we could and maybe should continue, at least in large number of industries, if not in every industry, with the bell curve, because I think our maturity level is pretty low. Maturity, what I meant is maturity of the PMS process in many Indian organizations, and especially the manufacturing industry and others, is fairly on the lower side. So unless you have a thing like bell curve, which forces you to distribute your people into superior performers and not so and all that, one could end up getting everybody rated very, very high. So there is surely some merit in the bell curve. Apart from the fact that in lots of HR processes are linked to the rating, the rating in terms of the way the person has been rated, because you want to identify your top performer and put them on a high growth track, or identify your potential potential leaders. You possibly, when you have to having given opportunity for performance improvement, look at people who have who have not been wanting or unable to measure up to your needs and all that. So you need an objective measure instead of a subjective judgment of a superior. So bell curve does help in that.
Yes, sir.
But of course, it needs to be done, with a lot of sincerity and not just as a weapon. So it has its pluses, and yeah, that's right. So I think there is some merit in continuing, maybe in the knowledge industry, or those jobs where there's a lot of focus on teamwork. It's the team that produces the results and not individuals. There could be a slight struggle in terms of.
Yeah, I agree, sir. I think I take your point, and we should continue with it till the time we see that our organization has matured enough, to rate effectively or objectively without bell curve. So I think with this, I have already taken a lot of time of both of our panelists. Will not take much of it, sir. Sorry for that. On behalf of Naman and our viewers, I once again extend my gratitude to our guest speakers for today, and for responding so candidly, pragmatically to all our questions. I think our questions are no more questions because they are no more unanswered, and we have received answers to most challenging ones today. Thank you once again to both of you. Thanks to our viewers also for registering and attending the webinar. And please register yourself for our upcoming PMS certification program. I think it will really help you make it a success in your organization. Thank you once again to all of you, and take care. Good day. Thanks, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vibha. Thank you for inviting us. It was a pleasure. Thanks to Naman.
Thanks for those candid observations and sharing your experience. Extremely valuable.
And thanks to Naman.
And sir, looking forward to have many more such sessions with you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks to all of you.
Thank you.
Good day. Yeah. Bye.